everyone. Thank you all so much for having me today. My name is Isa Peña. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I am the Director of Strategy at Innovation Law Lab. I'm also one of the tri-chairs for the Oregon for All Coalition. But I think my most proudest title is that I am the daughter of two immigrant Oregonians who arrived here nearly 30 years ago, seeking safety and protection. And so I'm really honored to be here with you all today and share a little bit about Innovation Law Lab and share a little bit about the work we've been doing to protect and build a stronger community for our immigrant neighbors and families. Slide. Oh. Maybe we can. So our mission, can you go back a few more? Thank you. So our mission at Innovation Law Lab is to leverage advocacy, technology, and law to fight for immigrant and refugee justice. And so in order to do that, we consider ourselves knowledge leaders, community defenders, paradigm shifters, and technologists. And how we do that is by coordinating with other organizations to lead the immigrant justice movement here in our state. We are community defenders by defending and protecting immigrant families through our direct legal services in helping individuals who are facing detention or deportation. We are paradigm shifters as we fundamentally believe that impacted individuals should be at the center of how we do our work, and we should be meeting people where they're at. And we are technologists because we create tools for mass mobilization and status stabilization. So we run case management software to be able to really efficiently and effectively provide as many legal services to impacted individuals as we can. And while Innovation Law Lab is an organization that has been around for a little over 10 years. We actually started in New Mexico when family separation was happening at the border, and there was a family detention site that was starting. Our roots are actually here in Oregon, and the majority of our staff here is here and has been doing immigrant justice work since the beginning. And we know that we can actually not do any of that work alone. And so the theme that you all have shared with me feels very fitting because we cannot do the work alone, and we are actually much, much stronger together. As I mentioned before, we are a part of a coalition called Oregon for All, whose mission is to advance immigrant and refugee justice to build a more welcoming and prosperous state through education, research, organizing, and policy advocacy. Together, we uplift our shared values to foster thriving and resilient communities. And we leverage our collective power to reject any anti-immigrant policies at all levels of government. We advance a proactive vision for immigrant inclusion and success. And we demonstrate that hate and violence have no place in our politics or our communities. Next slide. And so this coalition is a coalition of over 90 community-based organizations with a steering committee of some of the most well-known organizations here locally who have gathered together since the this second Trump administration to really find ways to protect our immigrant community. Our group really focuses on kind of three pillars. One is community rapid response. So any time that there is ICE activity here locally or statewide, we activate over 19 different organizations that operate as regional leads to respond to those activities and try to provide community care to the impacted individuals. We also are a centralized convener as a coalition to share information and resources about what we see that is actually happening. There's a lot of misinformation, and our work is really try to separate the thunder from the lightning, and really see what the actual impacts are in our communities. And the other is to really push a new media strategy, making sure that people are hearing the truth about who our immigrant community is. I think there's a lot of vilification happening of our immigrant community, and we want to share positive messages of who our immigrant community is. Next slide, please. So I want to provide a little bit of context for Oregon's immigrant justice movement. Next slide. So I think Oregon has a long history of different sentiments, but over the last 30 years, Oregon has actually leaned towards fairness. We've been working collectively to build upon some instrumental policies to try and promote immigrant inclusion. And it started really, at least for our immigrant community, in 1987, when Oregon became the first state to pass a statewide sanctuary law. And since then, throughout the years, we have passed things like tuition equity, allowing students who live in Oregon, but their birthplace may not be Oregon, to access education, things like driver's licenses, people to be able to drive on our streets lawfully, things like Cover All People, which provides access for individuals who may not have immigration status to access health care. We've passed a strengthening of our state sanctuary law in 2021. We've created a statewide program for free immigration legal services for folks who need them. We've passed farm worker overtime. And so all of these have really been building blocks that Oregon has used to really protect and lean in on making sure that our immigrant community sees that they are a part of who we are and that they are integral to our state. Next slide. And so I think we've been, over the last year, been hearing a lot about some of the harms that this administration and others have really pushed towards our immigrant community. We've seen several different harmful executive orders as well as violent attacks on our communities. Some of those ranging from day one executive orders to redefine and end birthright citizenship. That would be like taking my citizenship away, as I am the daughter of immigrants. We've seen the ending of most forms of legal pathways for status stabilization. We've seen TPS designations expire with no renewal. We've seen different asylum pathways or people who are on asylum be detained. And so we're seeing a lot of these legal pathways that existed for many, many years start to close their doors on immigrant communities. Additionally, we've seen increased domestic enforcement and threats of withholding federal funds from non-cooperating local agencies. We've seen data sharing agreements and inquiries to expose where our immigrant communities are and sharing their information. We've seen the ending of what was a 30-year-old um, secure locations memo, which essentially said that immigration enforcement cannot happen at churches, cannot happen at schools, at hospitals, or community spaces. Um, and also the ending of enforcement at disaster sites. We've seen individuals be picked up while they're fighting fires. Um, we've seen um, mass influx in funding for ICE and the Department of Homeland Security to conduct raids and enforcement operations. And we've seen threats to sanctuary jurisdictions like our own by threatening to send troops. And we've seen, I think, as of this weekend, just an increase in ICE presence and public troop deployment to our state. And so these things are very, very real. I know they may, there's a lot happening, but these are actually things that are happening to our communities. Next slide. But I wanted to share a little bit more about how Oregon has really felt that impact. Here in Oregon, I think we're seeing between 2 to 5 detentions a day. That is as of the last month. Um, I think with the stuff that's been going around this weekend, we may see more, but that is kind of the latest. We've seen about 700 calls a month to our statewide hotline, the PERC hotline, of individuals reporting ICE activity or ICE presence. Um, we've seen anywhere over the last month about 70 detentions in a month, and that's been a number that ICE has actually given to our congressional delegation, that is approximately what they've been able to achieve. Um, We've also seen a 320% increase in need for legal services. So individuals who maybe had status now need to, um, you know, change given, the temporary protective status designations expiring, or people who maybe felt like they didn't need to, they were permanent residents and, were not um, seeking to naturalize. People are now seeking to naturalize given all of this fear. We're seeing fear in community. People are afraid to come to worship. People are afraid to go to the hospital, go to schools. We've been seeing a lot of drop off in student participation in schools. Um, We've also seen some increased violence outside of the ICE facilities, not by individuals supporting our immigrant community, but actually by the officers themselves towards individuals. We've seen a mass denial of access to counsel, meaning that when we have tried to represent somebody or tried to go and access somebody who's been unlawfully detained, we have been denied access, many times seeing people disappear for 48 hours, where we are unable to locate them. We've seen arrests here at our courthouses, especially in immigration court. I think we had at least 6 different arrests in our immigration court. We've seen threats and lawsuits against our state sanctuary law, and just as I mentioned, just this weekend, an increase in ICE presence and possibly troop deployment to our state. Um, and so all of these actions hurt all of us. Um, and I mentioned this to bring it here and localize it for you all, because I think it's important for us to identify what it is that you can do and how you all can help. Uh, next slide. Next slide. So I think really, speaking from the immigrant community, um, because there is a lot of fear, because there's all of this activity happening here in our state, I think the biggest thing we can do right now is help build communities of care. And what that means, is finding ways to contribute in your neighborhoods, your congregations, in your schools, in your workplaces, and with your immigrant neighbors and friends, um, in a variety of ways. I think you can speak out and exercise your First Amendment rights peacefully to the injustices that are happening. Um, you can also help stay alert. I know I was talking earlier about different apps that share, where ICE activity is happening and really only spread facts, not fear. I think it is really, really critical that in this moment, we are sharing only verified information, that we are recording information, and that we are reporting it to the PERC hotline, who has a team of trained volunteers to be able to go and verify that that is actually ICE and that enforcement activity is happening to our neighbors and our friends. We can also use our own rights, right? You may be asked about your immigration status, and you can exercise your right to remain silent in the same way that we are asking our immigrant community to do that. We are asking everyone to exercise their own rights, as they will often, um, you know, try to get you to share your status, in an effort to move on and intimidate somebody else. But you can exercise your rights and ask for an attorney. You can exercise your right to remain silent, and that actually gives them more time with you, but less time out in community. And so leverage your rights as best you can, given your own individual status and your own potential impact. Um, Other things you can do is help us protect our state sanctuary law. I mentioned earlier that there have been threats to our state sanctuary law, with different lawsuits, threats of losing federal funding. I think when the going gets tough, it'll be hard to convince folks that we need to keep this law when we are seeing massive cuts. And these cuts are actually made to increase the budgets of immigration enforcement and DHS. And so, as we are seeing these, I think it's really important for us to hold the line and maintain that we want to keep our sanctuary state, um, even in the face of potential cuts and what that can mean to all Oregonians. I think we can stand together in solidarity in the impacts that we are seeing. Um, Other things that you all can do is start carpools. I don't know if you all heard there was a detention near Cesar Chavez Elementary, about a week or so ago, and the community really felt the impact, so much so that they started carpools to and from school for family members who didn't feel safe taking their kids to school. Um, Carpools seem like, not the best way to do your social justice thing, but it actually is really, really helpful, for immigrant families who are scared to take their kids to school or go to the grocery store. You can pick up their groceries for them, as well as accompany them to any immigration proceedings they may have or offer mutual aid. I think right now, building communities of care and caring for our neighbors is the best way that we can stand up, against the atrocities that are happening to our immigrant communities. Um, Next slide. And then also really share the resources that we have created for our impacted community members. There are a variety of Know Your Rights informations. Become a Know Your Rights expert. You give the Know Your Rights trainings, right? These are things that you all can be doing in your communities to help some of us respond immediately, and you can be responding and reporting the interactions to help us prove what is actually happening on the ground. And a lot of those videos, sometimes it feels like you're recording them and unsure about what happens to them. Those videos can often be used for um, the individual's legal case if there is excessive force being used on them, or to help us identify the officers. And so all of that information is actually really, really helpful. Other resources that you all can share and are about the Equity Corps of Oregon program. That is the statewide free immigration legal services program that I mentioned. Innovation Law Lab is actually the clearinghouse for that program. And what I mean by clearinghouse is we are the logistics coordinator of our statewide program. So we work with other legal service providers and help delegate cases, and we take on cases ourselves. Um, you can donate to organizations who are doing a lot of this work. You can also promote and share toolkits that we've created for schools, for organizations about what to do if ICE shows up in their buildings, what kind of signage you all should have about private spaces and public spaces. All of these resources are available on the Oregon for All website as well as the Innovation Law Lab website. Um, you can share and read about our Sanctuary Promise hotline at the um, Attorney General's website. They have actually a really good toolkit about what our law does and what it doesn't do. I think there may be misconceptions about how strong our law actually is, and what our law really is a anti-racial profiling law, essentially. So saying that you cannot be um, arbitrarily asking individuals about their status, you cannot share their information. And so reading up on the law and also sharing the Sanctuary Promise hotline if you see a violation. So if you see our local law enforcement collaborating with immigration officials, you can actually make a report yourself that is happening for them to conduct an investigation. Um, there's also messaging. I shared earlier that part of our work at Oregon for All is try to help people understand who our immigrant community really is. And so you all can uplift positive messages about our immigrant community and help us kind of spread the word about how you have interacted with the immigrant community and how you are supporting immigrant Oregonians. Sometimes you are actually the best messengers for validating the work that we have been doing. And so really encourage you all to share some of our messages. There are also other trainings that I mentioned, like ICE verification or Know Your Rights that you all can be a part of, as well as sharing the resources like the PERC number, which is the number where you can report ICE activity, and the ECHO Legal Services number, which is where people can access free immigration legal services. So there's a lot of things that you all can do to help your immigrant neighbors, and it doesn't have to be I think when we hear a lot of what is happening, sometimes it feels paralyzing that you're unsure of what to do. And there are certainly ways that you can be contributing that don't require resources or that don't require a ton of work. It is just working with your neighbors, working with your friends to make sure everybody is protected. Become somebody's emergency contact, right? There are a lot of immigrant neighbors and friends who their networks have been primarily other immigrants and other neighbors. Be their emergency contact in this time. I think it's really, really critical for us to stand together and really um, be in community right now. So I will end there. Thank you all so much. I'll be around later for questions, but really appreciate you all taking the time to hear about Law Lab and how you all can support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pena. And again, she'll be available after service for question and answers if you want to talk to her about any parts of the program. An important part of our identity as Unitarian Universalists is working to make the world a better place. One of the ways our congregation supports this mission is to donate one of our special collections each month to a group doing good work. Each year, we identify a focus of these collections and incorporate speakers on that topic over the course of the year. As I mentioned earlier, our focus this year is We Are Stronger Together, who we are as a community. And we focus on organizations doing good work in this area. Today, we're going to be doing a special collection for none other than the Innovation Law Lab. Thank you again, Ms. Pena. We have two choices for participating in the offer today. One is virtually here through the chat or the QR code there, as well as from our ushers here. So I invite you all to pause for a moment and listen to Ellen play while we take in our offer. Thank you. Ron.
Ask you.